Welcome back to the program. We have Nozibusiso Dembe, our treasury dealer. She's in studio. She's helping us make sense of the numbers that we are seeing today. Maybe we'll start with the foreign exchange. Zibuza, I welcome you to the program. Good afternoon to you.
Afternoon.
USD/ZL, it has strengthened, but it's very slight. Talk to me about this. It's down by 0.11%. What is driving this shift?
So actually, the ZAR has been weakening since last week, Thursday. This is after the SARB made an interest rate decision where they decided to leave interest rates unchanged. So we saw the ZAR strengthen and the IZL intuitively after that. And it seems like the SARB they shrugged off the inflation print that happened the previous day, which was the Wednesday, where inflation in South Africa came out at 3.2% versus an expectation of 3.4%. And the market obviously was expecting inflation to be a little bit higher, but the SARB didn't factor that into their decision. And it also seems like the SARB is waiting for the dust to settle when it comes to the global trade wars that are happening at the moment. And I think that once the dust settles there, that'll then give an indication of what the interest rate expectations or the direction is from then on. So the ZAR is trading, has weakened against all major currencies. The US dollar IZL is currently trading at 18.2240. The euro against the IZL is trading at 19.6632. And the pound against the IZL is trading at 23.5067.
It's quite interesting. There in the UK, what is really happening there is that a shift in terms of their economic data, or could it be a shift in terms of the sentiment, investor sentiment shifting elsewhere?
So there is investor sentiment that's shifting elsewhere, but regarding the numbers that we just saw, it's primarily a weakening of the ZAR, not really a strengthening of the other currencies.
It's quite interesting. Okay. Should we move to commodities now, if you will allow? Gold, you always say it's a safe haven.
Absolutely.
And it has nudged up slightly by 0.006%. With markets wobbling, of course, we are seeing economic uncertainty. I want you to talk to me about this, whether is it a minor movement or rather a sign really of that investors are starting to really hedge their bets.
So like you said, gold is a safe haven currency or investment avenue rather for investors. And we've seen gold reach the price of $3,000 per ounce, actually exceeded for some time. So on about a week and a half ago, it passed that 3,000 point, and this is because of the safe haven demand of gold. The U.S. uncertainty, which is being experienced at the moment, is making investors a bit apprehensive around U.S. investments, so they are shifting towards gold. And there are positive impacts of that for the rand, because we know that South Africa is one of the biggest producers of gold, which means the price of gold ticking up is increasing, has the potential to increase the output of gold coming from South Africa. So we saw the rand last week. Unfortunately, we didn't have a show last week, but we saw the rand last week strengthen quite a bit to levels of 18.01. And we're currently now trading at 18.22. But this is after Thursday's interest rate announcement. So gold is really quite high at the moment. On the side of Brent crude, which is trading at $75.15 per barrel, we've seen the price of Brent crude edging higher due to supply concerns mainly. So there's a lot of supply concerns when it comes to gold because there's a decrease in U.S. stockpile of Brent crude. But then more importantly, on Monday, President Donald Trump signed an executive order to impose 25% tariffs on all countries that are importing or using oil from Venezuela. It's important to also emphasize that oil is one of Venezuela's biggest exports, and China is one of the biggest buyers of oil from Venezuela. And we know that China is a big target for the US. So all those things tied up together are then causing supply concerns for oil.
It is very interesting what is happening there, but I do want to really pivot back to gold a little bit. What we are seeing here, is this the safest in terms of it being a haven? It's been in recent history. I mean, what has been happening in the US has been happening for a while now. Is this an unprecedented number in recent history?
So yes, it's never reached levels of 3,000, exceeding $3,000 per barrel, per ounce, I mean.
quite interesting.
And it's primarily been due to what's happening in the US, and it's been growing slowly. It's been quite insidious, the growth, because the market is really watching out to see what's happening next.
Interesting, it has metastasized all over all these numbers that we've really discussed. It's the US effect has really been there. The S&P 500, as we move into equities now, inching upwards, but this is albeit, modestly, it's doing
Very
it very
modestly.
modestly. Yeah, what is the signal here? Is it, telling us about optimism maybe, or, are we in for a bumpy ride?
We're definitely in for a bumpy ride. The S&P 500, as you're saying, it's edging up a little bit, but very marginally. In fact, yesterday it closed at those levels, but during the day it was up and down with small losses, small gains, small losses. It then closed there. And over the past couple of weeks, the S&P 500 has been really experiencing significant losses. It might not be depicted in this picture, but if you look historically, there's been significant losses in the S&P 500, primarily due to what's happening in the US. And what we're seeing is that investors are shying away from US investments and moving on to other investments. So that's benefiting the FTSE as well as the JSE All Share Index.
Yeah. So is it the same story? I know you are saying yes, indeed. What is happening in the US is also, having a downstream effect on the FTSE and the JSE All Share Index. But I do want to understand the reflection really when it comes to the FTSE 100 there. Is it, the UK market, or is it merely catching up to broader global trends? What is really happening?
So the FTSE 100 tracks the performance of UK companies. And because of what's happening in the US, investors are shifting their investments also to UK companies, South African companies as well. But it's also important to emphasize that right now the market is very apprehensive and waiting for what further trade tariff announcements Donald Trump is going to make. And those are due on the 2nd of April. So on the 2nd of April, you're probably going to see a lot of shifts. Trump has indicated that some of the countries will be, they won't be hit as hard, but there's mixed signals in the market, so it's not quite clear yet.
Do you have a prediction of, the kind of effects that we're going to feel?
It's not good for me to give a prediction.
Well, he's very predictable right now as it stands. The JSE All Share Index, what we're seeing there, could that have the same effects in Eswatini?
Yes, unfortunately, or fortunately rather, because the ZL is pegged to the rand. Whatever happens in South Africa, we likely are to experience the same thing in Eswatini.
So your expertise is always very insightful, and I'm sure the investors here at home, and we do have viewers from